always looking for is this, I don't know how you want to explain the feeling you're looking for that you would like when...
Yeah, it's the question is, what do we want the audience to experience? And just to comment on what you say, Magnus, or just to share my knowledge that it is impossible to sing two voices together underwater. Because when you sing yourself, it's like your whole body resonates. It's like you're one big resonator and you cannot hear anything else. You cannot hear the other singer sing. But it leads me to what we want the audience to experience. And when we're above water, our echolocation is so fine-tuned, we can always feel where we are in comparison to our surroundings. And there's a distance between us and our surroundings. So when I'm underwater, there's this feeling that the sound from outside the skin is traveling to this thin little skin and get inside. And for me, it's like the line between outside and inside is very fine. And you feel just much closer to the nature around you or your environment. I know we cannot do this above water, but is there somehow we can get audience to have that feeling?
Well, I mean, I would say so. Usually we. I don't think this is true for musicians, but for many other of us non-musicians, we really think about how good we hear. So we are sort of a bit. We always think of us as being very visually oriented, but we are extremely auditory oriented. And if you do, I usually tell my students the morbid question, would you rather lose your eyes or ears? And most people would almost by reflex say, I would rather lose my ears because I really want to see, right? That's almost our reflex answer. But if you think about it a bit more closely, and I worked a lot with blind people. I didn't work with so many deaf people, but most blind people, they don't accept themselves. Many blind people don't accept themselves as being handicapped. If you think about it, many blind people function completely perfectly in our society, whereas deaf people, we don't meet that many deaf people anymore because we have excellent hearing aids. But traditionally, deaf people are left out completely and usually extremely, I shouldn't say asocial, but they have a very hard problem to follow the social, being part of a social gathering and just to orient themselves, because we are excellent at picking out sound sources around us to tell which environment we are in and what's going on around us using sound. And in a way, we are much better. If you compare with other animals, I would make the statement that we are much more specialists in terms of hearing than we are in vision. There are many animals that are way better than us in hearing. In seeing. But there are very few animals that are better in us in hearing. I mean, there are the bats and the porpoises that are better with bandwidth, but all other aspects of hearing, there are, we can do more or less the same things. You can even learn a very primitive form of echolocation yourself if you need to. So it's like that's coming back to that. Our environment is completely. We can separate this, and for us, it makes sense in air that you sort of build your sort of world around you from sound. When you then enter the water, this becomes a mess. And this is, if you're a diver, you know this, that it's actually very, you call it, I don't know, I can't remember what you say, but for you, it sounds like a positive experience to be underwater. For many people, it's a claustrophobic experience because you cannot tease these things apart. You don't know if that boat that you hear is 5 meters from you or 5 kilometers away, basically. It's very hard to use these cues that we work on land. You're never in doubt if a car is close by or far away. You can easily tell that, but underwater you can't. So everything feels like it's just happening very close to you and everywhere because you cannot really tease out the direction to the sounds. So we are extremely handicapped. So if you really want to give that to people, I guess what you want to create is this mess. You want to somehow blur the directional cues. You want to flatten out the spectrum or the sensitivity, as you can. This data here indicates that the black dots are the sensitivity in water, and the circles are the intense or the sensitivity in air. And the sensitivity in air follows this kind of U-shaped audiogram. That's a very common feature of any animal that we measure. Whereas in water, everything is much more flattened out, which is another sign that we're not specialized to do this. So you would like to emphasize probably lower and higher frequencies, maybe when you present sounds to people, even though the difference is maybe more subtle than, like, this is not maybe the biggest difference is to sort of spoil them from these directionality cues, and maybe also spoil them from the experience of being able, I don't know how to do this, but to spoil them from being able to tell how far away things are. So we are very good at that in air, by by signals being filtered in the environment. So the high frequencies will be filtered away, and we know that we can hear when someone is talking nearby or far away. This is not so in water so much, so you cannot say. So you lose both the sense of range and the sense of direction. So that's what you want. You want to confuse them completely. And for many people, this will be a very unpleasant experience. So you have to be a bit careful, because we see that a lot with the divers. They certainly don't like it. It's not a nice experience for many people. So I'm happy that you like it.
But that's very interesting, actually, because it's...
I can add a little anecdote to this perception of direction. Many years ago, I had to spend time in the army, and when you're out in the darkness and there's a tank coming, the frequencies are so low that you lose your sense of where it's coming from, and people are not panicking because of the sound or because of what is expected, but they're panicking because they simply cannot sense from where the danger is arriving. So I think that's a really, really good point. If we could somehow confuse people to not know where the sound is coming from, but then we have to take away the visual stimuli as well, because I mean, if we can see the musicians, we probably know where the sound is coming from. But if you could really make them completely unaware of the direction of the sound, that's a very interesting suggestion.
And you see that a lot also underwater. If you have a boat passing, you can really panic because you don't know if it's right above you or if it's 1 kilometer away.
So if I would like that this performance was look like many years ahead, and people, I think probably people will start some way or the other to live under the ocean again at one time, maybe not freely, but if we imagine that we will be accustomed to start to hear direction, because I think I'm not interested to get the audience into this claustrophobic sensation that you can have underwater, because you can also have another feeling. You can have that feeling that you are just at one with this element, and I'm more looking into that. So if we imagine that we in future times will be able to hear a little bit more of directional sound and feel more comfort underwater, how should it then be?
I wonder if I could just step in there, because the creatures are doing this all the time and enjoying their environment underwater, and are very adept at finding direction. Are of course, well, amongst many, the big marine mammals. Humpback whales singing underwater, spending days and days singing underwater, and are possibly even picking out, perhaps performance spaces that give their sound the qualities that they're looking for. Similarly, at the receiving end, the female humpbacks are perfectly able to detect direction and presumably distance as well. So they're able to extract cues that we can't, just simply because we're not adapted to that environment. And I wonder if situating the participant in your production into the body of a different animal might not be an interesting approach, rather than, that sort of gets around that discomfort of being in a foreign environment, and suddenly you're in a very familiar environment, but it's just one of a different animal, right? So it's there's other aspects of the experience that are changing. Then the difficulty is that we don't know a great deal about how particularly big whales hear. The knowledge is growing, but it's a little bit rudimentary. But on the other hand, what we can do is, and there are numerous examples of this, we have very good quality recordings of them in situ, in their chosen environments to perform. So there may be some relevance in exploring what they're choosing, what reverberant spaces they end up in, as some kind of a sign of what works well underwater.
That's very interesting, Mark. And actually, Angelo, he has been he mentioned that as well earlier in one of the talks I had with him. So it's very interesting just to try and look into how these different. I imagine as Angelo said, there's a different in how mammals hear underwater and then fish. So I don't know if this is too specific to go into, but I don't know if you have any say comments on this, Angelo. You're on mute.
Sorry, the microphone was off. Yeah, no, the point is that you have to make a fundamental choice. If you want to make a realistic emulation of what a scuba diver is hearing when underwater, or if you want to give normal people who never experienced being underwater a more natural perception, including spatial information, direction of arrival. Because for a scuba diver, it's normal to hear all the sound inside the school. You don't have a real spatial perception underwater. So if it has to be natural, the sound will not be spatial. Instead, if you want it to be pleasant for normal people, you need to provide spatial information. If you play the sound inside their head, it will sound strange for them because they are not used to the real underwater sound. So it's an artistic choice in the end, an aesthetic choice. I prefer to provide this virtual fish experience, hearing like a fish. I like the concept. Or hearing like a marine mammal, for example, like a dolphin. Dolphin perceive the direction very well. So what we want to provide people when listening underwater music is you are a dolphin and you listen like a dolphin. You don't listen like a human. Okay, that is my dream, my goal.
But how can we, yes, Preston, go ahead.
I was just going to add a couple things. So I did some testing with Navy divers, and the testing was associated with their feeling sensation. So the perception of sound underwater is feeling as well. And they reported tingling sensations in their limbs as well as vibration sensations in their kind of middle body and their organs. So perhaps you could put a speaker in the seat for every audience member, and they would get some physical vibration for as well as what they're hearing.
Yeah, but
Roma.
You're on mute, Roma.
oh, it's going this. Yeah, that's Bjorn. It was a question for you. Like the physical experience in a spatial sound, is it possible? Does it work? Like we know experience like the low frequencies pretty well. Yeah, it's a big subwoofers when everything can vibrate. I also heard about some kind of sound system which is not allowed now because it can damage the organs because it's going through the whole body. But like the system you have, can it give some kind of feeling of the physical feeling? Because I also experimented with binaural sounds, and sometimes but it's mostly the deep sounds, like if the door is somewhere closing pretty like hard, somehow the whole body reacts like it's like you feel the vibrations while you're just listening to headphones. It's kind of very interesting aspect I don't know so much about, but the question is if it's possible to give some impulses to the brain by sound, so brain feels like it's a physical feeling.
Well, it is possible, of course, to work with shakers or so. There are some devices that you can put a chair or so you can put it on, and then align it in the frequency spectrum, and you know the lower content, the lower frequency content you will also feel in your body how much, but it's always coming from the same point, and that's of course something else than the water. It's your fact. It's coming from everywhere. That sensation is always you know how to emulate that part. And another thing that that you also have to think about in you know basically on land doing simulating underwater acoustics is of course the natural room acoustics, because you have the loudspeakers and the drivers, you have the distance towards the listeners, but you have a room, and this room provides reflections, and so ideally you have a completely absorptive, almost a dead acoustics to eliminate all of these reflections, because that will be disturbing your overall perception, of course.
Yeah, okay, that's also interesting. Yeah, but then maybe I have a question to Angelo and Ralph as well, because they have some experience in this area. But and the question is, like in this 3D dimensional sound, that while we're making this convolution reverb or recreating the acoustics, like the. But I mean, I think maybe it's mostly about the binaural sound, but I don't know if it's those two topics can go in parallel somehow. But like in binaural sound, we kind of in headphones, by help of headphones, we can experience this also dimension or the direction of the source coming from. And like, is it possible to make the convolution reverb in the air, for example? It's mostly like with three-dimensional feeling.
It's quite easy. It's very easy.
Okay.
If you have an ambisonics impulse response,
yeah,
you convolve your dry signal, your sound object, the mono track of the sound object with this ambisonics impulse response, and that becomes multi-channel. For example, is first order ambisonics is 4-channel. We actually are working at third order ambisonics, so it is 16 channel. When you have this ambisonic stream, you can listen to it with a loudspeaker array. For example, here you can see my 2 listening room here in Parma. Sorry, try showing you. This one is our ambisonics room, sorry. Is equipped with 18 loudspeaker currently, and this is in Casa della Musica, our lab in Casa della Musica. And here inside you sit, and the ambisonic signal is decoded of this on this loudspeaker array. This instead is a wavefield synthesis room we have with 189 loudspeaker and 4 full HD beamer projector. So you also have 360-degree video around you. And in this room, the ambisonics room is single seat. There is only 1 people listening. Instead, here is for 20 seats, and this is spatial sound for all of them. So the ambisonic soundtrack can be reproduced with any of these loudspeaker systems. But it can also be played over HMD. So a system like this one with headphones, a visor, and head tracking. Head tracking means there are accelerometer and gyroscopes. So looking around, you hear the sound in the correct position independent of the rotation of your head. So ambisonics is converted back to binaural with head tracking. So all this is feasible now with free software and very cheap hardware, because now the Oculus Quest 2, which is the best HMD available on the market now, is just 400 euros. So it's something very cheap. Instead, those listening rooms are very expensive. Building a room like this costs 100,000 euros, more or less. So it's not for everyone.
No.
But the binaural rendering is easy.
Yeah, okay. And then I have maybe a last question. It's about how to explain. This is a bit complicated to explain, but like the feeling in the water while you're in the water, it's like all this water movement, all these waves, all this stuff is kind of going through the body in some way. If you understand, I mean, as a diver, you know what I'm talking about. It's like this is very, very special feeling, kind of. And this thing is
the velocity.
Yeah, that's the velocity. And the
you don't have just to record pressure. You also need to record velocity.
Yeah, exactly.
And if your sound system is capable of replicating not only pressure, but also velocity, then you will get this perception. And an ambisonic system replicates velocity with loudspeaker, I mean, not with headphones. With headphones, you only replicate pressure at the ears. So you don't get this effect with headphones. But inside this ambisonics room, you really perceive velocity, if there was velocity in the original sound field.
Okay, that's it. That's very interesting. We should someone talk about.
I know that we're running over time here, so I just have one last thing, because I have seen that Niels Christian, he's with us, and we're very interested to hear, seeing that he's specialized in neuroscience and in combination with music. So we were just very interested to hearing his point of view on this, and how we could work with this whole submerged thing of how people experience music, or could experience music, this kind of underwater music.
Yeah, thanks for the introduction. It's been really interesting to follow. I joined a bit late. I think that the link was changed, so I wasn't really sure where to go. I've really enjoyed all the presentations that I've been seeing. I'm not really quite sure what to contribute, to be completely honest. I think that would take a bit more thinking on my part, but if there's something specific you want to ask about or go deeper into, then definitely get in touch afterwards. But otherwise, thanks for an interesting workshop.
That's great. That's great. So do anybody have any last questions or comments they would like to add?
Well, I could say just one thing. I think Roman mentioned this deeper, I think he called it like a deeper feeling for the lower frequencies. So there's another thing you could look for. That's the ear stones. So we have these beside. So I said it's the inner ear, right, that respond to sound. But you also have the sacculus and the different ear stones adjacent to the inner ear, that are used to pick up static acceleration. So that's how decides how your head is tilting and so on. But they are actually sensitive up to 50 or 100 hertz. And I have never seen investigations of this, but I've heard that they are also picking up low frequency sound, and they add a deeper feeling or a deeper experience for sound. That's something maybe that's something Niels Christian has heard about. I don't know, but I don't know if there are studies of this, but they're certainly so that they are. And the interesting thing is that they are also the ear stones that are then found in fish that are responsive to sound in fish. So there's a link there. So maybe look for these ear stones.
Okay, that's interesting. I just like to make sure if I understood correct. Like if I imagine sometimes in a loud sound environment, are mostly like deep frequency. If some frequency is really loud and you close the eyes, you feeling like you're getting dizzy or you get disorientated. Is it the same thing we're talking about?
Yeah. Well, I'm not sure. It could be. I just heard from a colleague that some people say that when they have a very good experience with music, it's because they make these these air stones shake or whatever. But I'm not.
Don't shake. Okay, interesting.
Look, if someone has studied it, I'm not sure. But they are certainly sensitive to low frequency vibration.
One last remark, Christina, please. If you think about public performance rooms, auditoriums, don't forget the height dimension. Don't let them tell you wave field synthesis with only one level is enough, especially for underground. It's important that you cover at least 2 or 3 levels of speakers, that you are really immersed, that you can simulate things from above and below. That's I think a very, very important point. The height. and be sure as many as Bjorn said, make the playback environment as dry as possible, and as many loudspeakers as you can get with your budget. Work with curtains to kill all reflections, and maybe make it pleasant, not only dark, but maybe you combine it with visuals. So that is one suggestion, and my last suggestion is I think you have to use remodeling technologies. Remodel the IR if you want to simulate a dolphin's hearing perception. I read that a whale has a range of 17 octaves. We don't have that as a human being. So think about that. If you want to simulate a whale's range, we have to compress and we have to pitch. We have to pitch the impulse responsive to remodel. That's what I did the last 10 years. Remodel the IR with algorithmic technologies. I think that's a hint to the future.
So allow me just to say a last word before Christina and Linda is stopping. It was really a pleasure to have you to visit our institute. I wish that we somehow could do it at a later state in real space. That would be very, very interesting, and also leave time for these more informal discussions where we get the tricks of the trade and get some of your inspiration also to this project. So thanks a lot for visiting AIAS, and thank you, Christina and Linda, for this very, very exciting conference, symposium, meeting, whatever we should call it. I hope that we could see you at some point later here also. And then I give the work back to you, Christina. Thank you for your excellent work.
Thank you very much, Søren. Thank you. And yes, we just want to thank all of you so much for being here and dedicating time to this project. It's been for us very, very useful, and we have learned so much today, and we cannot wait to get out and get our hands in the in the real thing. So thank you very much, and we'll for sure be in touch with most of you again, because I'm sure we'll have some following up questions that we would like to discuss with you. So, but thank you very much for today. It's really been a real pleasure.
Yes, I can only agree. It's really a gift for us.
Yes.
Yes.